A 16-year-old girl in custody after allegedly shooting and killing her own mother, Moya Moore. Moore was 34 years old. Galveston police say she was found on her porch after being shot multiple times. Moore's 16-year-old daughter, whose identity is not being released, is in custody without bond because of that issue, her age. Fox 26 spoke to Moore's family about this tragedy.
The last couple of days, I've been feeling like I'm losing my mind. I was questioning, like, why? Why would you do this to your own mama? I just can't believe she's gone, for real.
When you got the news,
I was devastated. Devastated. Didn't want to believe it.
Now, Moore leaves behind 4 children. Tonight, we break this down and its bigger implications. What could have led to this? How do families and communities respond? And what can be done to prevent tragedies like this from happening? Joining us to...
Not much, aside from the fact that neighbors heard yelling in the nearby house where the shooting took place, called 911. Officers arrived to the scene and found the mother's body. Neighbors said that the daughter was home around the time, but she wasn't there when the officers arrived. As they conducted their investigation, she apparently came back to the scene of the crime, and she was then subsequently detained. So as of right now, there's still a lot of information that we don't have regarding the facts and why this happened.
Now, we have seen videos on social media of them collaborating together, looking like they had a good time. I mean, could that tell us anything? But first, before we get to that, we'll leave that for Dr. Smith. But what's happening to this young girl right now behind bars?
Well, first, as a defense attorney, I'm always going to say we have to presume that she's innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. And that being said, she's going to be detained right now. They're probably going to try to bring together evidence to say that there's probable cause that this crime has been committed. The first thing that they're going to look at from the prosecutor's side is whether or not she should be tried as an adult. And they have what's called a certification hearing. For serious crimes like murder, typically they will try to try someone of that age as an adult just because of the seriousness of the crime.
It's hard to hear that they might be charging her as an adult because our frontal lobe doesn't fully form until we're 25. Which means impulse control, ability to fully understand the gravity of their actions isn't quite there yet. Mm-hmm. And so while we don't know what was going on, right, both things can be true in terms of them being able to have fun and create memories together, while also there being conflict. That doesn't necessarily mean that there was abuse or anything in the household. But again, what we also have to recognize when we have somebody who's 16 and we don't have the facts, we don't know. So I'm just, speaking generally.
And of course, we don't know if she actually did this.
That part too, right? That part too. But then what we have to understand is when we have a child who does such an act like that, their frontal lobe isn't fully formed, their executive functioning isn't developed yet. We don't know what role drugs, peer pressure, past traumas might be playing in this. Age category, adolescence, 12 to 21. You have a lot of hormonal changes going on. Mm-hmm. And so while things like isolation, change in behaviors are strong indicators, that isn't necessarily always an indicator. Also, because again, there's a lot of changes going on. They're forming identity, etc. So then what becomes important is when you start to notice drastic changes in behavior, whether that is sleeping, crying, bursts of anger, then that's when you start to have the conversation, right? Start to have more open conversations, start to do phone checks, start to see what type of media they're consuming, and then start to identify, do they need further support? Because what we also have to recognize is onset of severe mental illness like bipolar disorder, things like that, happen around that 20, 21-year-old age. But there's indications sometimes leading up to it.
And especially on a case like this, you're going to want to do that type of evaluation. One thing that, I forget your name, Dr. Bernadette mentioned was looking at media. There's a lot of violent images that children are exposed to. We know that Charlie Kirk just passed, and that shooting was played all throughout social media that kids have access to. And sometimes I wonder if children are just becoming more increasingly desensitized to violence, and so parents have a responsibility of making sure that their kids are not exposed to that.